It's Easter when I'm filming this, and I waited a whole year after buying these press-ons to finally wear them, and I hate them. Hello! Es ist Sonntag und ich heiße Sonntag, and welcome back to Books and Hooks. Why am I in a different outfit than the cold open? Well, it's a different day. Hi from the future. I had to refilm this because, silly me, I thought I could post this on Monday, and in the opening I filmed I said Es ist Sonntag. I like to drop videos no more than 2 weeks, but I'll explain why my life is a little hectic right now, so take it away past me. If you're new here, welcome. I am D.M.Sonntag, author of the Kingdom Isle series, and this is a channel where I talk about books and crochet. If you're a returning watcher, welcome back, and yes, I am late. As I said, today is Easter, so I was a little busy. I couldn't film yesterday because I was packing and this office was an absolute mess. Now all the yarn is organized, so that's good. However, I am a little nervous of where Books and Hooks is going to be since we are moving, but until then, the show goes on. And today I'm gonna do something that I haven't done yet on this channel, but I do hope to continue. That is read from my book. At some point I would love this to be an audiobook, but currently I don't have the funds or equipment to make that happen. If I haven't explained before, I am self-published, so everything in the Kingdom Isles I have uploaded on Kindle. What is it called? It's KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. Self-publishing is really cool that you can control the cover art, the content that goes into the book, the day you publish it. If you really wanted to knock out 7 books in a year, 12 books in a year, a book a month, the world is your oyster and nothing is your limit. The sky's your limit. Whatever. Basically, it's your own schedule. The downside to self-publishing is you are in control of everything, meaning you have to do everything. So with audiobooks, it's like, great, you just wrote, edited, published, marketed this book here. Now buy a mic and voice it, or pay somebody else to voice it. And right now, I'd rather just keep writing books and releasing those. So one day, audiobook, but until then. And I do have plans to be traditionally published in the future, but that's a ways away, which unfortunately means a long time before this does become an audiobook. Until then, I will be reading chapter 1 today, which used to be available on Amazon as a sample, but I just checked and it's only the prologue now. So here's chapter 1. I think reading the first chapter is a good sample of what you're going to expect in the book, or if it hooks you or not, so hopefully mine does that for you. And just a little bit of backstory and explanation before I jump in. I will be reading this in a British accent because chapter 1 takes place in the Northern Kingdom where everybody is British. The Northern Kingdom was inspired by England. The Southern Kingdom was inspired by Italy. The Middle Kingdom was inspired by the United States. The Western by India. And the Eastern was originally inspiration from Germany, but ended up being kind of Nordic as I developed the language. This is the map of the Kingdom Isles, made by my best friend who drew that. I cannot draw. So disclaimer, my British accent is not perfect. I'm not a voice actor, but I am practicing. I'm in D&D Casting Fate, as I've mentioned before, playing a character that speaks proper English. So without further ado, here is chapter 1 from The Lightning Bride. Someone was screaming downstairs. Maylie folded the corner of the page and closed her book, the cover worn from many reads. Another pregnant maid? She wondered as she gently tossed the book onto her bed, watching it bounce. She had again been lost in the tales of marauders on the 5 kingdom seas, a novel her mother criticized was too violent for 19-year-old ladies to read. She could try and read through the noise, but she knew the captain found the treasure, and her curiosity of events outside fiction claimed her. As she left the comfort of the duvet and scurried to the door, the screaming continued. Slipping her bare feet into silk flats, she could hear muffled male voices and sounds of a scuffle. Mailie's heart constricted. Perhaps not a maid. The pregnant maid had put on quite the show when Mailie's father discovered the sin and was forced to let her go, along with the groundskeeper. Her father didn't have a choice, only following their kingdom's rules, but he had generously paid for their marriage. Mailie opened the door, unleashing piercing shrieks echoing throughout the manor. She wasn't sure if it was the marauder stories whirling in her head, but she felt this was a matter of life and death. Something isn't right. She walked forward, shivering. She couldn't distinguish words, yet as she made her way down the hall, passing her brother's room. Quickening her pace to reach the stairs faster, she peered over the banister and counted 5 men in the middle of the foyer surrounding one woman. The men wore pristine military uniforms, crimson red for the Northern Kingdom. Rosecoats, as many people called them. She watched as one man, Dawn, with more medals than the others, grabbed for the woman. Millie froze. The woman was not a maid. It was her mother. Amelia Shadow, you have been chosen for a trial, the man who grabbed at her said, frustration in his voice. He wrapped his fingers around her mother's arm. Come willingly, and your sentence will be light. Maylie knew that was a lie, and so did her mother, since she told Maylie what happened at trials. If the woman was found guilty, and she had no man to claim her, the trial immediately became an execution. You can't! Her mother shrieked, struggling out of the Rosecoat's grip. You have no right to barge into my home and take me. Viceroy Brackley has signed the order, the officer replied. Why did Lord Brackley order a trial? The Viceroy of Port-Royal was her future father-in-law. Her mother had good relations with him, having been the one to suggest her marriage to his son. She had done nothing to arouse suspicion. Maylie's stomach churned. Unless someone caught Ben and me swimming. But if they had, a trial would have been ordered on Maylie, not her mother. Her confusion grew alongside her fear. She wanted to move, but she stood frozen. My husband is returning today and will not allow this, her mother continued. There is presently no man of the house, another Rosecoat spoke, taking iron shackles from his belt. His face was impassive, his words cold. You are the Northern Kingdoms until then. My son is the man of the house when my husband is away. Is your son present? The Rosecoat holding her asked. Her mother went silent, fear in her eyes. Ben was apprenticing with Port-Royal's finest medic, second finest if they counted Maylie's father, who should be returning today from his 4-month tenure at sea with the Navy. Couldn't they wait? Her father would arrive any moment, as her mother said. Why weren't they listening? Even though she was a woman, Maylie's mother had a talent of getting her way. The men led her mother, screaming and thrashing as she was manacled, toward the door. This was the first time Maylie had seen her mother in a panic. She knew why. Her mother would be found guilty. There was another cry, and Maylie realized it was from her own mouth. Everyone stilled, turning toward her. Relief flashed amid the fear in her mother's blue eyes, the same color Maylie shared. Take me to the trial instead, Maylie cried, rushing down the stairs. You will come as well, the officer holding her mother said. He nodded his head to the third Rosecoat, who quickly grabbed Maylie. You lied, Amelia, the Rosecoat said. You said your daughter was with her betrothed. Her mother said nothing. Let me represent her, Maylie protested. If I'm innocent, my mother is too. She prayed her face didn't reveal the lie. Both of you must reveal your innocence, the officer replied. Maylie shook as she was put in chains, though she had nothing to worry about besides embarrassment. The dread must be for her mother. Please, I beg you, Amelia began again, resisting as she was shoved forward. Wait for my husband. There has been a mistake. He will clear this. Maylie grunted as she was pushed forward as well. She had to consciously force herself to lift her feet, passing a prone maid. Her eyes widened when she recognized Nita, her old nanny. Please just be unconscious. He cannot deny a trial ordered by the Viceroy, the officer said, opening the door and leading them out. He can only claim you if you fail. Maylie held back tears, trying to compose herself like her mother. Their reputations would be ruined and lives lost if her father was too late. She tried to think of words to calm them both. It's going to be all right, Mother. Father will claim you. Us, she quickly corrected. He'll come here first. Her mother met Maylie's gaze, fear turning to defeat. Then Ben will, Maylie said, trying to stay hopeful. He'll have to attend the trial. Her mother relaxed slightly. Yes, Ben will claim us. Maylie walked the path to the town, trying not to think about what was to come, but grew angry. She hated Northern Kingdom law. A woman must have a man at all times, she heard too many times. There must always be a man of the house, beginning with a woman's father and transitioning to her husband. A woman couldn't even go to market without a man on her arm escorting her, or she would be shamed and arrested, which is what these men were doing anyway. Maylie's humiliation grew from everyone they passed. Even the beggars were watching. Her father had bought the status with his fortune, but not even that could save her and her mother from a trial. The crowds congregated once they neared the platform. Her mother had composed herself and held her head up, looking over the crowd. Maylie tried to do the same, but had never been skilled as a mother. She was grateful for the enclosure of soldiers, in actively shielding them from the hostile crowd. Slurs of sea witches and ocean harlots sounded. Maylie wanted to retort that her mother was neither, but knew her shouts would get lost in the clamor, never reaching a single person's ear, let alone their hearts. Port-Royal and the whole Northern Kingdom hated what they were told to hate. The Rosecoats forced Maylie and her mother up to the platform normally used for the gallows. Maylie shivered as she saw the ropes hanging still on the windless day. If no one claimed her mother today, they would be used. Her mother released a short cry, and Maylie strained her neck to see what was the matter, only seeing Viceroy Tommen Brackley holding up a hand to quiet the town, and her uncle, Admiral of Port-Royal's Navy, standing beside him. Her mother swayed, and Maylie finally saw what caused her to cry out. Ben stood at the end, chained by his wrist to a ring on the floor. Maylie's eyes widened and her heart sank. Someone had certainly witnessed them swimming. "Why is he here?" her mother shrieked, while the officer holding her chained her to a ring. "He is under suspicion," Lord Brackley answered. "This is absurd," Amelia continued. "Only women are—" "Silence," Lord Brackley bellowed. "We shall begin." Maylie trembled, causing her chains to rattle as she was chained to the platform. She eyed her brother, unable to believe they had him for a trial. They were right, but only her family knew that secret, and even they didn't understand how that was possible. Now their town would know the truth, a lie they kept private since they took residence here when Maylie was 3 years old and Ben an infant. Lord Brackley stepped forward. "Amelia, Madeline, and Benjamin Shadow, you have been accused of being creatures of the Wicked One and have been brought to trial. What say you to these accusations?" "I plead not guilty," Maylie shouted as loud as she could, though her voice wavered. The only calls after were the gulls by the shore. She looked at her family, surprised her mother remained silent. Was she spiting Lord Brackley, or thinking of a way out? If she pleaded innocent and was found guilty, not even Maylie's uncle could save her. Her brother stood stiff, his face stoic with stern green eyes. Maylie always forgot he was 16, as he looked and acted more like their father each day. He would be the spitting image if not for the brown hair inherited from their mother. "I plead being a man," Ben finally said. "He's clever," Maylie thought. Surely they could not try him now. No one would believe a man could be a creature. Only females were. He might have a chance to save his reputation. "You have made your pleas," Lord Brackley said. "Begin the trial." Maylie's eyes widened. The crowd shouted, but Maylie's attention was on the officer carrying a large wooden cask. She was equally grateful and terrified. He stepped onto the platform behind her first. Perhaps if she proved innocent, they wouldn't try the others. She closed her eyes, waiting for the officer to tilt the barrel. Icy water gushed onto her head, cascading down her body. She held her breath until it finished. It would have felt refreshing, if not for the salt stinging her eyes. She tried to wipe them, but the chains restricted her, so she was forced to blink away the burn. Maylie stood drenched and embarrassed, but unchanged. The crowd hushed, and Maylie could hear the combination of disappointment and relief, as she was still human. Lucian was one of those rooting for her. He had to be, she hoped. "Madeline Shadow," Lord Brackley spoke, "you have revealed you are innocent of the accusation, still a daughter of the divine." She could hear relief in her future father-in-law's voice. A different rosecoat carried a new cask of salt water to her mother. Maylie started to protest, but Lord Brackley shot her a look that could only be interpreted as, "Hold your tongue." She swallowed back her words and tears. They would not spare her mother. The rosecoat dumped the salt water onto her mother, and the moment it covered Amelia's body, she dropped to the floor. She writhed and thrashed, crying out in what Maylie assumed was pain. Her mother hadn't changed in 17 years. Under Amelia's dress, her feet lost their heels, and her legs turned inky blue, growing scales as her flesh disappeared and her limbs fused as one extremity, resembling a betta fish's tail. Her skin lost its peach hue, becoming gray and scaly. Gills formed on either side of her neck, fins on her forearms, and she cried out as her teeth elongated, pointed, and sharp. Maylie realized she had never seen a mermaid this close, or at all. She tore her eyes from her mother, who was writhing on the wood like a fish, and gasping with hands over her gills as she tried to breathe through her nose to look at Lord Brackley. Surprise painted on his face. He hadn't expected her mother to fail. He cleared his throat. "Amelia Shadow, we have exposed your sin and revealed you are guilty of the accusation brought upon you. If there is no man to claim you, you will be sentenced to death." I'll stop there and leave you on the edge of your seats. Hopefully that intrigued you and made you want to purchase the book, which is in the description below. I do hope to read some more, maybe finish the chapter. I don't know how long I went, and hope to read some scenes from other books. Maybe not the first chapter from them, as they might spoil some things, especially book 3, but I'll try to find some harmless scenes. Ooh, meeting Barnabas in book 2 and then meeting him in the novella would be pretty contrasting. Anyway, on to crochet. So this is, oh man, I can't even get it in camera. Let me step back. My baby blanket. I'm not standing, by the way. Not for my baby, somebody else's baby. I'm part of a crochet group, and there is a church that gives out little gift baskets to expectant mothers. So a few of us in the group are crocheting baby blankets for the 14 women who are going to get the baskets. I'm currently in the process of making 3 other blankets, and yes, of course, this is the one I finished first because it's for a little bitty baby. And then 2 of the 3, I can only crochet a line a day. So this one I just cranked out while watching Avatar and Has Been Hotel. I love this blanket so much. It brings me so much joy to think about the baby that's going to get this and sleep in it. It's so soft and delicate and pretty. Doesn't it just look like a little baby blanket? I was also so nervous making this because I didn't want it to be imperfect. I was making sure nothing spilled on it. I was weaving in all my ends. I knotted them, weaved them like 3 times, making sure my hands were clean when I was crocheting. I'm really glad I decided on this type of border. It's just a single crochet. The top and the bottom, there's less stitches than the sides, but I think it's okay. That's really the only thing I would change. Overall, I really like it. Like I said, I'm really excited for the baby who's gonna get this. So that's the end of this chapter. If you like what I do and what I make, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Instagram for more content. Until next time, Auf Wiedersehen.